You need any more natural light?
No, we have plenty.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So I can open the garage door and it comes through that window pretty well. But if you're dialed in.
We're pretty good here, yeah. Alright. Armo, there. You're all mic'd up and we are rolling.
You're rolling, okay.
Give me your story.
April 3rd. I remember that as being a very humid and extremely warm day for April. It was about 84 degrees. And my father, my brother, and I had been to Cordon to pick up some fencing for the horses. And we were on our way back when we noticed this huge black cloud following in the west. So we got home. We both worked second shift at the post office. So we changed clothes real quick. Mom had dinner on the table and we sat down and eat. We was getting ready to go to work and looked out the front door at this black cloud, and it was huge. It was hanging right over our property, but everything was really still. It was really still, and this cloud was so low you felt like you could touch it. And hundreds of little tornado spinners were circling in that cloud. And I looked at my dad and I said, "Have you ever seen anything like this before?" And he said, "No, I've never seen anything like this." So we both kind of said, "We got to get out of here. We're sitting on a hill. We have no basement. We have no cover." So we all jumped. The whole family jumped in the car and we started down the little gravel lane. The driveway is a good quarter of a mile, and then you got probably 3 or 4/10 of a mile to drive down the lane to get to the highway. And that was driving right into the storm, whatever it was. So we did, and when we got to the highway and looked across the highway, that's when we seen things in the air circling. We thought it was birds, like buzzards. We wasn't sure what we was looking at. Come to find out that we were looking right into the face of an F5 tornado. But we were so close to it at that time. It was so wide, you couldn't see the edges of it, so we didn't realize it was a funnel. But when we got to the highway, my dad turned towards the east, and we started driving, but the wind had started coming across the highway as we were turning onto it, and it grabbed a hold of the back of the car, and the car was going like this. It was shaking the back of the car, and we were in the back seat, my brother and I, and we were screaming, "Dad, you're going to have to go faster. It's catching us. We've got to go faster." He says, "I've got it all the way to the floor. It's all it's going to do." So we kept driving and driving. We drove, and then about a half a mile down the road, the tornado came across. And we could see the wind, but that's all we could see was just wind coming across that highway. We drove to Greenville and turned around and came back. And then we noticed as we got close to our home and our lane that everything was gone. There was 5 houses on the highway that had been swept clean. There was nothing left, not even a stick was left on those houses, just the concrete slab that they had been built on. And then we turned into our lane and looked across the field, and both of our double wides, and these were heavy, big double wides. They were 60 feet long, both of them. They were both gone. I mean, they were just, my parents had been picked up, thrown down the field about 100 feet or so and dumped. I mean, just turned upside down and dumped. Mine was all shut up because I was on my way to work. So it exploded. It just exploded in thousands of pieces, nothing left at all. And the horses, we had 3 horses on the property. They were nowhere to be found. They showed up 2 days later. One of them had a big scratch on them, but otherwise they were fine. And my mare, she had been 10 months pregnant when the storm hit. She gave birth to a filly the next month in May, and we named it Wendy.
All right, so 2 things. So when you got back, you got to see your home.
Yeah.
Completely just gone, nothing left. and you knew you didn't have a place to stay.
Right.
What was going through your head, and how did you feel?
Yeah. It was shock. I mean, when you learned, you expected to see your house, you know, but when there was nothing but a bunch of metal laying in the field, it was just such a shock. I don't think it actually hit me. I mean, it just didn't. I was just kind of numb. You don't know what to do, you know.
You guys had all survived, but some of your neighbors didn't fare so well. Can you describe what happened to them?
Right. I went down the lane to check on an older couple that lived farther down the lane, and it had thrown them out. They were in their trailer, but it had picked up that trailer and thrown them out of the trailer. The tornado actually picked them up and dumped them. One of them had a broken arm, and the other one was, I don't remember if they had a broken arm, but they both survived. It was very strange. And then there was a grandmother that lived across the highway from me. She had been babysitting her 5-year-old granddaughter, and she died in the storm, unfortunately. The neighbor across from us, the little lane there, had Charolais cattle, and they had been picked up by the tornado and then dropped, and they were bawling all night that night from broken limbs, broken legs, and they had to be destroyed the next morning.
And you had the one neighbor that had the house picked up, and what was underneath it? How did that work?
Yeah, the Rawls down at the end of the lane, the same place where the elderly couple had been picked up and thrown across the field. Their daughter and their son-in-law lived in the farmhouse, and they had cattle. It was a 2-story farmhouse. It was a big wooden structure, and that tornado had picked up that 2-story house, ripped off the wallpaper, and threw a cow underneath the foundation and set that house back down. And I took a picture of that house sitting on top of half of a cow.
Wow, that's what you call ground beef.
That's, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then, so maybe some of just little memories that came along the way.
Yeah.
After it had occurred, what are some of the oddities that you guys found? Maybe you mentioned the carpet that was up in the tree for so long.
Oh yeah, the brand new green carpet that had been in my double wide wound up at the top of a hickory tree on the property, and it was there for a good 20 or 30 years before it finally shredded away. It finally rotted enough that it went away. I found on the property, I had found a McDonald's plastic top come off their soda fountain, driven into the tree. Now, it was just sticking out of the side of a tree. That much force, a plastic top driven into a tree. And I also found a squirrel that was dead, unfortunately, but had been wrapped around a tree.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just unreal.
So what's the significance of April 3rd, 1974 to you?
A day of survival. I mean, by all rights, if we hadn't have gotten out of here, if we hadn't have made it to the highway and out, I'm sure some of my family would have been gone, that would have been dead. We wouldn't have made it on that hill.
So how did that make you feel once you realized that?
Grateful. Grateful and blessed.
You put in a sentence form. They don't know that I'm asking this question.
Oh, they don't. Well, after that day, it makes you very grateful for what you have and for your family that survived. Because my brother was only 15 at the time, and he was home from school that day because he had just gotten out of the hospital with rheumatic fever. He wasn't able to go back to school. So I'm just grateful we all are alive and made it through it.
Good. All right. Anything we forget? Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I think
did Dad get stuff mailed to him from like Madison, Indiana? Remember anything like that? But he had like checks or something mailed, returned from Madison.
yeah, Dad was telling me about that, and I can't remember the story behind that.
Sorry about that. All right.
Yeah.
Good job, Mama. Thank you. Hey.